everyone. I'm Megan Ashley. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited today to do my first grief chat with a guest. So I've done two videos before and they were almost a year ago, talking about my experience with losing my mom to murder in 2006. And it's been something that I've always wanted to do, to talk about grief and kind of normalize life after loss and conversations that I didn't think were happening enough. So I'm really excited to be here with my guest today. And yeah, let's play the little intro and then I will introduce her. Hi.
Hi, Megan.
All right, we did the intro. I was so nervous because this is my first time. Well, actually, I went on and tried yesterday, but this is my second time using StreamYard, the paid edition. So, yeah, that's a whole other thing. But being the one that's like running this, trying to put it together and then figure out like this software of doing it, I've been a little bit stressed. I'm like, how is it going to go? So, yay, the first part's done.
Well, I'm super nervous, and this is the first time I'm doing a live. So we'll see how all of this goes.
So, what I wanted to do first is just kind of tell a little bit of our stories. So, do you want me to go first or would you like to go first?
I can go.
Okay.
Okay. So, well, my name is Chrissie. My Instagram account is letters_to_John, which I started after my boyfriend, my love, my partner passed away. Oh my gosh. From suicide. He passed away. Why am I crying? In November 2018 to a gunshot wound in the head, and I had found his body. So, anyways, John and we met in 2012, and I mean, he was 9 years younger than me, which is a lot. And so, I was like, it's just for fun. It's gonna just hang out, whatever. And but we like just so immediately connected, and it's like my soul recognized his soul, and everything moved very fast. And we lived together for some bit until he actually we broke up in 2015. He was dealing with a lot of things, and I think in retrospect, looking back, it was probably hard for him to be in a relationship with what he was dealing with, like mentally. But probably after that first kind of year, we would text every so often. But in 2016, we started spending more time together. We actually were not ever back in a labeled relationship. But from the moment we met, like we really did just love each other so very much. And just a few months before he died, we were actually talking about, let's make it official. Let's move back in together. What about kids? All these things. And so, yeah. So when he passed away, it was very devastating. And it pretty much, it changed me forever, I wasn't looking to really be a voice for grief or start anything when I started my Instagram account. I was really just looking for connection to anybody that would get it. When he passed away, I was 39, and I'm like, I don't really know many people who have lost like their person at that age, or anyone that I was like super duper close to. And so it was very isolating. And so, I started Letters to John, and there's a journey of just meeting all these people, and who got it, who didn't judge, many of whom I'm really good friends with, some across the world who I've never met, but they become part of my little tribe of people, get it. So here I am.
Isn't that amazing when you find community, even if it's online? It's so wonderful, and you can connect with so many people all over the place.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really awesome. And this is the first time that I'm really hearing your story, because I've heard like bits and pieces of it as we've been talking, but this is the first time. So I just want to say how sorry I am for your loss and how horrible that is. And I can't imagine, having been like, let's make it official, let's talk about our future, and then boom, you know. So thank you so much for sharing that.
No, of course. Thank you for, having this platform to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my story is a little different, and I lost my mom, not a partner, but it was in 2006. I was 18 and my mom was 37, which is wild to me because I'm 33 right now, and I think like, wow, I'm going to be her age, and then it's like I'm outliving her. And
Yeah.
also the fact that I don't have children and she had me when she was 18. So like for me to be 37, I'm not probably going to have kids still. And she had an 18-year-old, like that just blows my mind. But anyways, we can talk more about this stuff later. But someone broke into our home in the middle of the night and stabbed me.
Oh my
And
God.
then I was actually in bed with my mom because we did sleep together, which is super weird, I know, for people, but I didn't think of it as weird because I don't know, I was just used to it. I really only lived with my mom full time for 1 year before she passed away. Before that, I was mostly at my grandparents' house. So
Okay.
I moved in with her for a year and I didn't like my own room, so I slept in her room. So I was in bed with her when someone broke into the house and into our room. And I was stabbed first. And then the woman who did it ran around to my mom and started stabbing her.
God.
But I thought, for sure, if I'm getting away, then my mom will too. Because I just had this like, my mom's like a superhero in my eyes, which I never realized it until after she passed away, but how much I put her up, like, that she could do anything,
Yeah.
So I just thought if I can get away, she can get away. So I left. I left the room and I told my aunt and my grandma, who were in the house as well, to get out because someone was in the house. So as I was leaving the room, I looked back and I could see my mom being stabbed over and over,
Oh my
but I
God.
still didn't think that she could pass away. Like I just had this thought that she's going to get away, we're all going to be good. Like it was so weird, I had that thought. So the person who did it didn't really try to escape and went to jail and then ended up going to prison. Will probably be up for parole, ironically, when I'm 37 years old, which is the age my mom passed away. So yeah, it was like life was just turned upside down so quickly. And it's almost been 15 years. So also, I mean, the fact that you really only have been dealing with this grief for 2 years. When I was 2 years in, I wouldn't have been able to talk about it. So I really applaud you for,
Oh,
taking control of like your healing and putting yourself out there, because I know that that's not easy to do. Also, when this happened to me, we didn't have, it was still MySpace. This was before.
yeah.
So like Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff wasn't even around yet. So I had MySpace at the time just to kind of like show the times were so different. It was only 15 years ago. But I've always wanted to tell my story, and people, it's made them really uncomfortable. And I think grief makes people really uncomfortable, especially when it's like a traumatic grief, like you or I have suffered. They
Yes.
don't know what to say or do. Or sometimes, oh, now I feel like crying. Sometimes they'll just start crying, and then it's like we're left to deal with their
Yeah.
reaction. It's
Yeah.
like, now we have to hold their reaction instead of us like just saying it for our benefit. It's like, okay, now I have to worry about how you're reacting to my story because it's so much to
Yeah.
deal
No, it's so true. And I think like in our society, we avoid grief, right? Nobody wants to
with.
talk about it or deal with it, but it's the one thing that's going to happen to everybody at some point
Yeah.
is death and grief. So why, because we don't talk about it, it's like the burden is left on the griever to
Mhm.
make the other people comfortable. When,
Yeah.
how does that work if we're the one that's in deep grief?
Mhm.
And, kind of like I mentioned, I didn't set out to talk about it. It just kind of happened naturally, I guess, just in conversations I've had with other people. And also, I think especially in early grief, just seeing how people react to that and what they say.
Mhm.
It's all those kind of, oh, he's in a better place, or,
Mhm.
um, oh, well, he would want you to be happy. And it's like, while those things may make sense later on, when
Mhm.
people say that to you in early grief, you're kind of like, well, at least for me, I was like, well, F you.
Yeah.
I don't want him to be in their place. I want him here,
Yeah.
you know. And I've had even people say, oh, well, you're still young. Um, you can find somebody else and stuff like
Oh,
that. And
that's the
again,
worst
while
thing to
that may or
say.
may not happen, like, why would you say that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, people definitely I mean it's like because mine was a different situation, but still people would say things like when they would try to tell me like God is in control and stuff with what happened, I'm like, well, if that's true, then why would this have happened? So people, I think they mean well, but they
Yeah.
don't realize the impact of their words to someone who is especially newly in grief when it's like your whole world has just been turned upside down and the last thing you want to hear is something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what was like going back to after you found him, how did life change for you like right away? Did you have support from people?
Yeah. I have a really good support system of like family and friends.
Mhm.
Um, and I love all of them, but it's still so isolating, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and then you're in a fog. I feel like a lot of grief people talk about the fog. You're
Mhm.
just kind of floating around in your own thoughts or whatever, and like nothing makes sense and your memory sucks. And
Mhm.
like for me though, even though I had support, it's that feeling of you don't get it, you'll never understand.
Yeah.
And even when I started meeting people online, people that are further out in my grief than me, right, on
Uh-huh.
grief, oh, it's not going to be as heavy,
Mhm.
just hold on, it's not going to be as heavy and you're going to learn to live with it. And early in grief, you're like, no, it's not the same. No, it's not going to
Yeah.
happen. I mean, I'm 2 years, 5 months in, and I kind of find myself now saying that to new grievers who reach out to me. But at the same time, I know they're not hearing it. They're not hearing
Mhm.
it. And that's okay because everybody has their own journey. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, when it first happened, I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't shower. I wore the same clothes all the time. Um, I slept on my couch for whatever reason for the first 6 to 9 months. Like I couldn't go into
Wow.
my bedroom. I don't know
Mhm.
what it was. I couldn't. Um, your whole life changes. I canceled my cable because I didn't watch any TV. I stopped listening to music, which
Mhm.
I love music, and music is usually something that would take me out or help me through anything that's difficult. But in this case, like I couldn't. It was so like my world became smaller and smaller and smaller, and it was just
Mhm.
me. Very isolating. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's kind of what happened to you.
Yes, I've actually said the exact same thing. It felt like my world just got smaller and smaller and smaller. Um, and everything changed so quickly. Like I was gonna sell my car because I was like, I'm never gonna drive again. And driving had nothing to do with what happened, of course, but I don't know, like you said, just certain things just became, it was like this new life. And I was in the hospital for 10 days because of my stab wounds. So I got stabbed in the lung.
Oh my God.
And my mom,
So sorry.
we found out, or I found out afterwards, that she had been stabbed over 30 times, but she ended up dying in the hospital. So she didn't pass away right in the room. And the first responders who were there told me afterwards that, which I might not cry talking about it now because it's been a long time and I'm okay with it, but for a long time I really struggled because they said the thing that she was saying was my name. She was saying Megan, Megan, Megan. And they were like, is that the person that did this to you? And she, I guess, said no. And then they realized that was me, her daughter. So she was asking about me, to make sure that I was okay. I think kind of like hanging on for that. So I dealt with so much like survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
And the fact that I left the room, when I think back to like, if it was the other way around, my mom would have never left me. So I had that, which I think that was, because there's like the different stages of grief.
Yeah.
And I know we don't go through them like in the order that they are. And some days you kind of go through all of them in one day. But one of the big stages, is like the bargaining.
Yeah.
And I think I was in that for a really long time. Like if I would have done this, if I would have just done this, and then the other thing is people would tell me, right, when they were talking about it with me, it would be like, well, if that happened to me, I would have got the lamp and hit her over the head with it, and then she wouldn't have.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so again, it's like people just, I think they just want to feel like it can't happen to them.
Yeah.
So they make it like this thing where you're like, this couldn't have happened to them. So yeah,
no, that's very true. And the bargaining, yes, makes so much sense. I mean, I still ask why, why this, why that. And I've been to like groups with other suicide loss survivors, and and you learn like it's not your fault, and even if you somehow stop this time, there might be a next time and stuff like that. And it's so easy, I think, to let your mind go down that path. Because as much as I try not to, I still think why. I still have the self-blame and just thinking like, should I have, like, what could I have done, to stop this?
Yeah.
Or I didn't do enough, or maybe I shouldn't have said this or that. And and I don't know really if that really ever like goes away, when you're grieving. Honestly, what's helped me, and I don't know if it's helped you, but it's really just finding that connection. I think connection is so important, to find people who you can talk to about without them feeling uncomfortable or awkward, or saying like those weird things that people say if they just don't understand.
Putting their foot in their mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, connection is big.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I found, through Instagram. Whatever people's opinion is on social media, I can say that I found the best of people on Instagram. And just the resiliency that I see in like all of these people who have had such profound loss and show up for other people that way. Like, I can't even, it just touches my heart, to be able to do that. Sorry.
Yes, definitely. Okay, we got some comments I want to show you. Maybe these are your friends. And then we got a, oh, wow. Yeah, definitely some stories that will make you say, wow. Love and hugs to you both. Thank you. I'm so sorry for your losses. You both have such strength and compassion. I hope that while your message reaches everyone, that you get the peace and love you deserve. That's so sweet.
Thank you, Avi.
Mother's love, yes. Aw, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, going back to community, I just did a podcast on Tuesday. So I have a podcast. It's not about grief. It's just a LGBTQ podcast where we talk about all kinds of things, actually. But I was a guest on a show called The Morning Meeting, like morning, MOURNING. And I think that's the first grief podcast I've ever done that's specific to grief. But so I just retold my story on Tuesday for the first time in a while. And I was like, wow, I don't remember. I'm like forgetting some parts of it. And it's so weird.
Yeah.
But she was asking, the host was asking, like, what really helped you afterwards. And it was like, let's see, 2006 is when it happened. So maybe 5 years. It took me 5 whole years before I was actually ready. But I started to Google support groups for homicide victims. And I found parents of murdered children, which I almost didn't even click because I was like, I'm not a parent of a child who was murdered, so this isn't for me. But I ended up clicking it, and I'm really thankful that I did because it's for all family members who have lost someone by violence. And being in the room with, there was like, like 12 to 15 people every month. And every month there would be at least one new face, which is horrible because there's always, someone, which is like anything with any kind of death, I guess. It's like every day there's going to be new cases of loss, these very traumatic losses. But being in a room with people who had lost someone the same way that I did, and then it was more rare that I would meet someone who also survived attempted murder. But then I finally did meet someone who had a very similar story to me. And that's when it really clicked for me. Like, I really felt seen and heard and understood. So I always recommend, whenever I find out someone lost someone to homicide, I always recommend POMC. But when someone loses someone in another way that I don't have like the resources to help find, I always recommend looking for a support group, because being around people who've had the very same thing,
Yes.
I think is so important. And then, of course, now it took me even longer than 5 years to be willing to talk about it on social media, but now I do. And so my social media is all over the place. It's not about grief, but it's about everything. I do talk about it there too, and it's been very helpful.
Yeah. I'm lucky because early on, I have a friend of a friend who works for Dee Hirsch, which is out here in Culver City area in California. And they work with AFSP, which is the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention.
Wow.
To provide group sessions for loss survivors, attempt, etc. And I'm just very lucky because she reached out to me and she was like, here's the information when you're ready. And I was like, I need to go. I mean, mind you, I was already going to therapy for other things in my life previously. So I understood like the importance of seeking help like outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And so I did, I reached out, and Dee Hirsch provides an 8-week bereavement course for suicide loss survivors. And it's a closed group with the same people so that, you kind of get to know each other.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah. And, just to hear other people's stories and to sit there and understand, what everybody's feeling is very helpful. And then from there, I started to become involved with AFSP just in the walks. Like I did a lot of the walks. Um, and I've made some really amazing friends and connections through there too, through the groups. And when there was this new griever who reached
Mhm.
out to me on my Instagram page, and she said to me, she's like, "You don't know me, but I need to know how you're doing this. Like, how are you? Like, how am I living?"
Mhm.
And I had recommended, AFSP and groups to her, but I think some people just they're not ready yet, you
Uh-huh.
know. And quite honestly, I can't answer. Like, I don't know why I was so able to kind of jump into that. Um, I don't know, but it's definitely something that I recommend to anybody that's going through not just loss, but like a traumatic loss as well.
Yeah.
You know, um, I just think it's so important to talk about it. And even, sorry, I'm thinking.
It's
I
okay.
have I have a friend, and she actually she came to me one time, and she was asking me about grief and my feelings, and she was like, "I really want to learn and understand." And I can't explain like how like appreciative I was of that, and for her to actually really want to understand where I was coming from, because she was like, I mean, do you want to be sad? I was like, no, I don't want to be sad. I just am, and here are the feelings that come up with it, and this is what I'm dealing with. You know, um, it's not just the loss of the person. For me, it's the loss of, it's the future, right? You lose that future that you talk about. For me, it was also losing my everyday person every
Mhm.
day. What do you want to do? My adventure person, my travel, music, concert, all that stuff, you
That's
know.
so sad.
So, my second year of grief was during COVID quarantine. And I remember in the beginning, I was talking to some of the other people that, my friends and stuff on Instagram. Like, oh no, we got this. We're so used to isolating already because we're grieving. We got this. And then for the first couple months, I was like, all right, like I can do this. But as it went on and as people started adapting to it, and seeing people have their little pods and
Mhm.
be able to have, support and stuff. I mean, I live by myself. I'm with my cat, and I just started thinking, if John were here, this is what we'd be doing. Or if this,
Mhm.
if he was here, he would know what to say or do or whatever. And so I kind of spiraled back down. So it's like the grief's it's an up
Mhm.
and down roller coaster
Oh, yes.
that I think never ends, right?
Yeah. Am I echoing? Can you hear me 2 times? Or can you
No,
only hear me once?
I can hear you once.
Okay, good. Because on my end, I'm hearing myself twice. I don't know if I need headphones or not. But yeah, I can't imagine going through such early grief in the time of COVID. So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That sounds rough. And I can't imagine losing a partner. So I think,
Well, I
I
can't
mean,
imagine.
I hate when people used to tell me I'm so strong, but it's like, and I find myself wanting to say it to you, like, you seem so strong. I don't know how you're dealing with it. But I also used to hate when people would say that to me. So
Yes.
it's like, why am I saying it?
No, me too. Me too. I hated it when people would say that. And part of me still does too. It's like, oh, you're
Mhm.
so strong, you're so brave. And I don't know why it makes me not upset, but like why it makes me uncomfortable,
Yeah.
or I'm not sure. But at the same time, I think just through a lot of just sitting with myself and meditation and stuff, I think it's really important for people who have experienced profound grief to acknowledge that you are in fact strong.
Mhm.
You are in fact brave because you're still here and you're still breathing, you know? But it's hard because I think of the survivor's guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it is weird when people say that. And sometimes I don't know what to say. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, thanks. I don't know, you know?
I think for me, it made me mad because I don't want to be strong and I don't want to be brave, but it's like I have to because of what I'm dealing with, you know? Oh,
What
that
kind
makes me
of choice do I
teary-eyed too.
have?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whew. Yes. And
I know.
people would always say, oh, you know, you're still smiling and stuff. And I'm just like, that doesn't mean I'm okay, you know? I
Yeah,
think I felt such pressure because of what I went through. Everyone was there, like my family were there for me, but I felt this pressure to put on an okay face because I think everyone
yeah,
was really extremely worried about me.
yes.
And so I felt pressure to like be okay, at least around people. So it's like, where do you turn to not be okay? Because
Yeah,
people can't handle it when you're not okay.
exactly. I experienced the same thing, and I just call it like putting on that mask. You know,
Hmm.
you go, if I had to work, go on to work. Okay, let me put this mask on. Oh, la,
Yeah.
la, la. And then I would literally come home and like put on the same sweats that I wore the entire week and just like sit in my little corner of the couch and just kind of just be
Hmm.
there, you know? And it again, it's because I think people are uncomfortable when people are not okay. I don't think that like you don't have to be positive all the time or find the silver lining in everything. Sometimes like you're just pushing away like all that yucky and repressing it, you know?
Hmm.
And so I've kind of after the amount of repressing my emotions that I've done, which was not good, I think it's just I think I allow myself to feel it now. It's kind of so where I'm at right now is like okay, I'm dipping my foot, right? Wanting to live again. When he first
Hmm.
died, like I wanted to die. Like I wanted to die. I didn't want to be here. Just I didn't want to be here. And it went from I wanted to die to, well, I'm here, but I don't care if I die.
Hmm.
I remember I read a story about this girl that it's horrible, but she had passed away. Like she died in an accident. And my first thought was, I wish that was me.
Hmm.
You know, I don't have those thoughts now, you know? So I'm dipping into, well, like I want to live, like I'm alive. I want to live,
Hmm.
but what does that mean? Because even having that intention of, I want to experience life again, people are like, oh, that's so great. You're doing it. You're doing strong. But I'm still like, but no, no, no. But I'm still not okay.
Hmm.
I, I still cry. I cry driving home. There's still all of those things. And I think it's just so complicated. It's
Hmm.
so complicated.
Yeah. I definitely felt the same when it first happened. I had wished that I died as well. I thought that would have been so much easier than dealing with it because it was like a nightmare. And I
Yeah.
think on top of, I'm not sure if you experience this, but like on top of just your average grief that people have when someone passes away, I think there's like this extra layer of trauma around it. I know
Yeah.
for me because I witnessed my mom's murder, and maybe for you because you had to see, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that adds like this extra thing to it that's really challenging to deal with. And
Yeah.
I wanted to die for a long time. And also, how do you say that to people? Because when you go to therapy, they're like, I would be afraid to say it to a therapist. How do I tell a therapist, you know, I'm not going to do it, but this is what I want, you know? So it's like, where can you go? I don't think it's hard to say that should be normalized, but it's like, that's just, I think, sometimes part of it. And it's hard because you can't express yourself to people sometimes because you don't know who you can tell something like that to.
Yeah. But I think too, just I mean, not just with grief, but I think just like any type of mental health.
Hmm.
I don't know that, well, I do know that, resources, it's so hard. It's hard to find a therapist. It's hard to find groups sometimes, if you have to wait to get let in or whatever. I just don't think that there's enough being done to provide support for grief, for any type of mental health. And on top of that, any stigma that comes with it, you
Mhm.
know, like, oh, you're sad, like you stay over here because I'm over here trying to be some kind of way.
Yeah.
And again, that's why it's so isolating. And you stay in your bubble and, it's hard.
Yeah. Do you experience joy again yet?
Yes, in moments, I
Mhm.
do. And I can say that, I can say that now.
Mhm.
But I feel like there's always a but, there's always a
Mhm.
caveat. And for me, that's still happening. Like, yes, I can now experience joy. Like before, it was like small moments of joy, and then I'd feel guilty for it or sad or whatever. I can experience like a whole day of joy, a whole weekend. It was just my birthday. I had a very awesome birthday. It's really nice to be able to say that. But
Yeah.
literally on the last day of like the last thing I was doing with my cousins, I cried driving home.
Mhm.
I wish he was here. I wish he was here to be here with me, or I wish he was at home so I could tell him about it. There's always a but. And I've noticed that every time I'll have like a good, day, whatever, few hours with friends, um, I do find that I start to kind of come down from that high.
Mhm.
And within 1 or 2 days, I'm kind of right back at this little bottom part. And so that still happens. Like there's always a but. And anytime I feel joy, I always know that I'm gonna fall from it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I saw your pictures on Instagram from your birthday. You looked so gorgeous, and I'm glad that you had a good time, even though it makes so much sense that you would have like a come down from that. And I wish he was here. I,
Yeah.
for the first time in a long time last week, had a moment where I thought, I'm going to call my mom. I haven't had them in so, because now, it's been like 15 years. I'm getting used to it, which is also sad. And I get really stressed and sad about that too.
Yeah.
That time has taken me so far away from her and everything. But I was just in the car with my partner and a song came on. And as I thought about it afterwards, I realized it's a song that used to come on, K Rock, because you're in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
So my mom used to always listen to K Rock, and I would not walk, but be in the car with her. And so one of the songs came on that I remember I used to play on K Rock a lot. And so I just had this thought of like, oh, I need to call my mom and tell her something. And then I immediately like snapped out of it and had that, I can't, my mom's dead. And then I had that whole like, now I'm really upset and I'm like going through it again,
Yeah.
which doesn't happen that often to me anymore. So it's super weird when it does. And it's just like heartbreaking. And in a weird way, sometimes I miss the earlier stages of grief.
Yeah.
But what happened to me is I was dealing with my PTSD and my trauma stuff for like years before I entered the grief part of losing my mom.
Yeah.
So by the time I was ready to grieve my mom's loss, I think most of my family already had.
Oh, yeah.
So I was, and I think still now I would say it's been 6 years since I actually started to grieve her loss, which, so that was what, it was 15 years ago, but it was 6 years. So I had delayed grief. Um, but now, so it feels like it's been like 6 years of me grieving. And I definitely experienced joy in a way that I never thought I would.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you still feel guilty for feeling joy or at all?
No, mm-mm.
Yeah. I mean, I look
Took a
forward to,
lot of work not to, but I don't anymore.
yeah. What you said about missing the early um parts of grief. I mean, I'm still early,
Hmm.
but it still makes sense to me because I think what a lot of people do is hold on to the grief because it's the last thing, right? It's the last thing you
Yeah,
kind of have with that person. And and it's kind of like, well, if I let this go, what's next? What
yeah,
is there now? But what I'm telling myself is, well, if you let that go, the love is still there. Like that doesn't go away, you know.
Mhm.
And again, it's going to happen in everybody's own time. I see, like when you say that you can experience joy without that guilt. I mean, I hope one day, I don't know when, that I can
Mhm.
reach that, you know.
I
Um,
hope so too. And I think you will if you keep working on it and it seems like you're putting the work in. Like I had to do so much therapy and then I did EMDR therapy
yes.
and those things I think helped so much more than I can even say and more than I wanted to accept because I did not want to do therapy and I was like it's not going to work. Nothing ever works. I hate everything. And then I
Yeah.
finally did
Yeah.
EMDR and I was like, wow, it was really good for like trauma. So I
I'm
can't
scared.
speak
I'm
highly
scared
enough.
of EMDR.
Yeah. Well, and you might not be ready for it yet, but maybe one day. But it is helpful, but it is intense.
That's what I hear.
Hmm.
But I've heard good things about it once you actually do it. But it's been in the back of my mind that I need to do it. But for the life of me, I can't get myself to look up an
Yeah.
EMDR therapist and go, because I know that it really makes you dig deep and like, go back.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of stuff there that I still have to unpack that
Hmm.
I can't unpack. The thought is, well, I'm doing okay now. Why do I want to unpack that?
Yeah.
Even though I know I need to. Oh, yeah, one day.
Yeah. Yep, it's definitely hard, but I think of it now like before I did EMDR, I would think about my mom, and the only thing I could think about was her murder. Like even if I had a good memory of her, it would turn back to me seeing her being stabbed. And I felt like that took away so much from her life because her life was so much more than that. And afterwards, and it could be time as well, because I didn't do EMDR for years. But once I finally did it, I felt like I could look back at my mom's life and I could just think of her life without thinking of her death. And I could see the story of that night unfolding without it ruining my whole day and night or without being back to PTSD, like a full blown PTSD episode. I
Yeah.
could see it and I could know that it happened because I had a long time of being like, was this real? And did this even happen? So I know it happened. I know it's real. I can see the beginning and the end of it, and I can still move on and have an okay day or an okay night. Whereas before, I would think about it and then I would be like, I'm afraid now. I can't be in the dark. It was just a mess, which makes sense. I mean, it's a horribly traumatic thing to experience. So, of course,
Gosh,
it's
yeah.
going to do that to you. But I'm just really thankful for EMDR and for coming this far. Like, I wrote a post on Instagram last night, but I ended up deleting it. I'll have to put it back. Do you ever do that? Do you write something and then you
Yes.
delete it? But I was thinking about I love that I've not given up on my healing in all this time. That's what I wrote. That's basically what the post was about.
But I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Because it does, it takes work.
Hmm.
It takes a very conscious effort to decide, right? That I'm going to live again.
Uh-huh.
And and sometimes you decide that and you're like, nope, I'm not. You go right back. You're like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not right now. And I think that's what grief is the roller coaster of, I'm okay, I'm healing, I'm making choices. Oh, it's like that. And
Hmm.
but I love that post. I don't know why you took it down. That's an awesome post.
I'll have to put it back up later. Sometimes I think I have a vulnerability hangover where you like feel like you said something vulnerable and then you wish like, oh God, now I have to deal with like people are gonna see this and I don't know. I
Yeah.
rarely get those anymore. So the fact that I did, I was just like, oh well, whatever, just delete it. But because this means something to me, doing this, having you on here means so much to me. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, I was super nervous, but I know we were worried about enough time, but we did it.
Yeah, we did. We did it.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any last thoughts?
Um, no, I mean, I guess for grievers, especially newly grieved, bereaved people,
Mm-hmm.
it's just really just don't give up, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just keep going. And I feel like find your why, you know. Mine was my mom or my cat, or, find your why and use that to keep every minute going forward. Just be here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And and if you're a supporter, you know, I would say don't um try not to make everything positive or be like, or try to make that person feel better, because you're not gonna.
Mm-hmm.
Just sit with them, let them have their feelings, and be there. If you say you're going to be there,
Sit with
follow.
them and sit with the discomfort.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you think you're uncomfortable, how does that make this person feel?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they know you're uncomfortable and they're like, oh, great, now I can't even talk about my stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you said it so perfectly. I was thinking about, couldn't really explain it on Tuesday when I recorded the podcast. She was asking, like, what could your friends have done differently? And I was like, I don't know. But in my head, I was thinking that, you know, one of my favorite things, I think a therapist told me kind of shortly after my mom passed away, was to take everything day by day. But if that feels too much, then to take everything minute by minute. And if that feels like too much, then to just go second by second. And I would think that, like, I can do anything for a second. I can do anything for a minute. I can
Yeah.
live for another minute. I can be okay for another minute.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
It's so true.
So I hope that our stories have helped others. Jessica said it was nice to hear both of you speak. Thank you. Uh, Maybe good grief is more than just a quick phase. You're both living it, hopefully living through it. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think that's the end. Now I have to figure out how to play the little video. Okay. Well, thank you all for watching, and be sure to reach out to Chrissy on her Instagram or me if you have any thoughts or questions or need some support. And I hope that you all enjoyed, and I'll try to do this again once a month. Maybe we can have you come back on another month.
Sure.
Next month, I think I'm going to be talking with someone about how to talk to children about grief. So that should be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks.
Bye.